Visit Rick Wagner and Tom Lau for a tour of some native trees, many grown from seed in his backyard.
He does a better job than I do.
About myself first.
Go for it.
I've been doing bonsai. I've been formally trained for about 40 years. But before that, when I was young, I used to live in rental housing. And if you put trees in pots, you can take them with you. So I started growing trees in pots since I was in my 20s. And then in the middle 30s, I started getting formally trained. My first sensei was Jim Tatsukawa. And then through him and the club, I met other people like John Naka and many other sensei. I've had about a dozen very good teachers over the years. This is a Polynesian introduction called How. It's brought here by the Polynesians who colonized these islands about 1,000 years ago. It's really easy for bonsai because it can be shaped and bent very well. You can see the leaves can be kept fairly small. And this one here, autograph tree, which is a Western introduction, it's also considered a bit of a pest, but you see it growing as landscape trees everywhere.
Why do you call it an autograph tree?
It's called an autograph tree because people can write their names in the leaves, and the leaves last for a year or more. So lovers like to, write on the leaves. So autograph tree.
And this
there's
is
a scientific name for it, but I've forgotten it.
And this is a triple trunk. Look at that.
Yeah, this is a triple trunk in the octopus root style Miyagari.
I think that's kind of awesome.
Yeah, and this is a composite coral pot made by one of our Rainbow Bonsai Club members named Shogu.
What are some of the advantages of growing native plants or native species for bonsai?
Well, when I was living in California, John Naka was a guy who liked to experiment with different species. And there were visiting sensei from Japan, and I've read some of their speeches in some of the older California Bonsai Society Golden Statements. And in there they said, we love what you're doing with your native trees. Keep it up. Because the stuff in Japan is appropriate for Japan, and the stuff in other locales is appropriate for bonsaists in those locales. And so I've always been experimenting with all different kinds of species. See what works, see what doesn't work. And these two are two fairly easy species. They meet that fundamental bonsai requirement of being hard to kill.
Especially in Hawaii.
Well, in Hawaii, these kinds of native trees are suited for the environment because of the climate. This native tree here, Ilima, is endemic. That is, it's a native plant that is found nowhere else in the world. Its ancestors came here without human intervention, and over the thousands of years it's been here, it has evolved to the point where it is a unique species. Okay, this is Ilima.
And the flower, does it flower?
Yeah, it's a hibiscus family. It has these small five petaled flowers, and it's used for making headlay for hula. And so it's sacred to the goddess Laka.
And does it have a different leaf structure underneath? It looks lighter underneath.
Yeah.
Almost. Oh, it is lighter.
This is typical of a lot of Hawaiian trees. They have silver in the leaf, which makes them more drought resistant.
Wait a minute.
Reflect the light.
Hawaii drought resistant?
Yes.
That's oxymoronic, isn't it?
No, the wet side of the island has lots of water, and the dry side of the island is a desert.
Oh, so the rain shadow's on this side.
Right, we're on the leeward side here. Now we're close to the mountains here, so we get a lot of rain. Down by the beach, might only get 10 inches a year.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's tropical, but on the dry end, depending on microclimates. We're talking really on microclimates.
Exactly. We're right here in the middle of the Aina Wailupe Valley. We have an almost ideal microclimate. We can grow all kinds of things here.
Interesting. Let's look at some of the other native plants you have here.
Okay.
Let's turn around really quick here.
Yeah.
Let me turn around really.
The tea is not a native, but also is a Polynesian introduction. The tea is used, the larger ones are used almost like a universal wrapping paper. If you want to make a gift or to make a presentation to the gods, you can wrap your offering in a tea leaf. But this one here is a miniature, and this one is actually a very nice looking accent plant.
I think it looks like a bonsai by
It's
itself.
also, it's
It's
also
actually beautiful.
beautiful pot made by Ryan Greer, former president of Rainbow Bonsai Club.
You have to rethink about that. It almost looks like a broom style. I mean, if you didn't tell me anything about it, it's like, oh, look, it's a really cool broom style.
Yeah, perhaps someday it could be a bonsai, but for now it's an accent
Is that
plant.
all right? We'll go with it.
And let's see, other natives here. No, there's no more natives. Kiave, which is an introduction, and this is a Polynesian introduction. This is called a kukui. I'm trying to make a shohin out of a kukui, which is probably a fool's errand, but I'm trying it anyway.
Why is that?
Because kukui has very large seeds and it wants to be a full-size tree 40 feet high.
So let's look at that tree one more time.
All right.
So, you know, if
This rock is in here just to keep it from blowing over in the wind.
that looks like a shohin, like a literati
Yeah.
shohin.
It could be a literati shohin. If I were to pinch off these leaves and leave just these tiny ones, you see that? You might get away with it.
Don't see?
In fact, if I cut these now and little ones shot out, I could put this in a show, perhaps.
Yeah. Does it flower at all?
Yeah, it has kukui flowers.
And what is the color or the pattern of that flower, if you remember?
It produces a yellow flower, but I don't think it's used for lei.
No.
Okay.
All right.
This is a non-native red hibiscus. This one has a really nice gnarly trunk. And this was dug from the ground, and I've been training it in bonsai for about a dozen years.
Since the Yardadori.
Yes, right. Hollow trunk style.
Does the trunk decay? I mean, in this tropic, does the wood decay?
Yes,
I mean,
first of all, hibiscus has a fairly soft wood to begin with.
Okay.
So it's not going to be like a California juniper where the wood will last 1,000 years. This wood will rot and decay, and you can see I've been putting lime sulfur on it periodically, trying to get it to go. And so, yeah, Yamadori, it was dug from the ground, but not in the wild. It was from a yard.
so does being on an island, are there any challenges that you face?
Just being on an island?
Yes.
Yeah.
So being on
For
an
one
island.
thing, it's hard to get good bonsai pots here, and when you find them, you buy them. Trying to import bonsai pots is difficult, but there are a lot of old-time bonsaiists who've collected a lot of pots, so you can find them.
What's some advantages of living in Hawaii here?
So the advantage, of course, is the climate. I think climate and the ocean, the views, the people, the aloha, especially. You probably feel it yourself
Yes.
when you get here. Immediately, people are not trying to get what they can from you; they're out to give.
Yeah. Let's look at one of the really unique features here is one of your plumeria forests. I mean, that is spectacular. And I've never seen one before.
Okay. Plumeria are particularly challenging. They do not want to be bonsai. Also, some of the trees, a single tree in plumeria is kind of uninteresting. So what do you do with a tree that's uninteresting? You make a forest and it becomes more interesting. So this is an 11-tree plumeria forest. These are all grown from seed. They were put together as seedlings at about half the height they are now, several years ago, maybe 5 years ago, this forest was put together. It has bloomed, and it will bloom. And right now I'm letting it grow wild, so this is in July. It'll probably bloom in August. And yes, we do have seasons in Hawaii. So August is the plumeria blooming season for plumerian pots. They start blooming around April, that tree over there.
What are some challenges of growing plumeria in a pot? Especially this shallow. That's pretty shallow.
They're easy to grow. It's just they're hard to train for bonsai because they do not want to ramify. You can see this has been cut and cut and cut and cut, and finally it's split. Yeah?
Okay.
So that's the challenge, making them branch. They won't branch out easily. They're extremely challenging. So when you get one that does branch, yeah, you'll want to keep it.
I think that's spectacular. Anytime.
So this is a triple trunk Chinese ficus that has been grown for bonsai for many years. I bought it at a bonsai show about 12 years ago, and I've been training it for bonsai ever since. I like it. I love the large trunk, the good rootage. Some people grow the aerial roots. I don't tend to focus on that. I tend to focus on the structure of the tree, the branching, ramification, and then you can see that it has, for a tree this size, it has fairly small leaves for a banyan tree. Now, I've been here now for 12 years experimenting with Hawaiian bonsai, both native and non-native varieties that were introduced by the Polynesians. And I've grown most of my trees from seed. And so I talked about my development as a bonsaiist, or my further development as a bonsaiist, by showing various projects I've gone through, usage of tools, design decisions, how the results are years later, what the tree looks like, and on and on. For example, a forest of citrus that was put together with native or local stones and into a psyche, and then how to do practical things like building boxes to make your bonsai grow larger. And there's some unusual trees like the Ilima, which you see right here. Here it is growing in a pot, and here now you see it in a bonsai pot ready for a bonsai display.
Awesome. And this is the book that you just published, correct?
This is a book that I've just published. It's only been out for a couple of months. It's called Bonsai Hawaiian Style by Richard Jeffrey Wagner, and it's a little bit pricey. $70 is the list price, but you can see it's hardcover and it's full of color illustrations, plus a lot of text that tells you how to do things.
Yeah, awesome.
So, buy a book. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Rick. I'm awesome. Hawaiian Style. It's awesome, man. Thank you so much. You guys like it? Leave a subscribe and like for everybody. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom.